Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Addendum with me, a host, Imperial Dane. Talking about today, a specific topic. Usually sort of talk about, when you talk about the next company of heroes, again, things I'd like to see. This is part, of course. Where it's going to take place. Some people want to see the Pacific. Personally, I do not ever want to see the Pacific. I just don't think it's going to be interesting. Some Italy, some North Africa. Some might just see another time period entirely. But for me, personally, I think companies, stick to World War II generally. Preferably sort of the European theatre. Bit North Africa as well, obviously. But also, it's not saying it could ever go anywhere else. Just, that should be more considered like a spin-off than anything. But really, if you sort of consider where would I like to see the next game this company's fleet to sort of be set, I'd probably have to say Italy 1943. And you might ask, why Italy and why specifically in 1943? Well, probably because it sort of represents a pretty interesting sort of juncture sort of in World War II. The Allies were sort of surging forwards. The Germans at the same time, were, still reasonably strong, just not super strong. They weren't, blitzing ahead anymore. They were sort of a bit more on the defensive, but still they had the capacity for offensive power. But also in terms, there was also, for example, in Italy, the Italians, technically, you could argue, could still be fighting there. They gave up after Sicily, but one could be generous, have them as, additional Axis faction there, sort of, fighting onwards, being generous. Because at the same time, they wouldn't be, with the equipment completely outgunned. And that's also the sort of specific thing there. Again, there were other big reasons. It's, rather far away there from sort of the Wunderwaffen stuff of 1944-45, with Jagdtigers, Sturmtigers, King Tigers, all the really, really big stuff, which is also at the same time a lot bloody harder to balance properly. Whereas, 1943, the biggest things you could expect were either Tiger, an Elephant, tank destroyer, which have been really rare, the Nashorn, and the Panther. And the Nashorn, for example, being thin-skinned, and the 1943 Panther having a lot of kinks, weak side armor, and I think also pretty slow turret rotation. So again, a lot more room there for also making things a lot more balanced. And from the Allied side, Churchills were the biggest, M10 tank destroyer would sort of be the heaviest in that department. So it also, create some interesting challenges there. But at the same time, again, we would avoid, a lot of the sort of the Wunderwaffen stuff, forcing, Relic to sort of focus more on, the actual good bits, half-tracks, scout cars, light tanks, medium tanks, and so on there. You can then have Panzer IIIs, Panzer IV sort of being sort of the main force, with Tigers and Panthers being called in units, because, in fact, the only Panther battalion, for example, saw action in Italy for a large part of the war, was basically very quickly taken away from its parent division and then sort of formed into a reserve unit. So that could, for example, be a pretty interesting way to go in there. And of course, for the Italians, they wouldn't be, again, completely outgunned. They'd still be undergunned comparatively to the Allies, but they'd still have some kind of remote chance. Plus some pretty decent elite infantry. Their paratroopers were good, their marine infantry was good, and they had some pretty tough pioneers as well, sort of assault pioneers. Little fun aside there. Plus, they had a pretty seriously excellent submachine gun, which even the Allies were impressed by. So, that could also be something there to sort of look into. But again, we'd rather, avoid some of the sort of, again, sort of creeping up Wunderwaffen stuff there, which again, rather seems to plague a lot of sort of the Axis faction. Again, ends up with units which aren't really practical in many situations, which again sort of feels awkward. So again, that sense I feel in that direction, Italy 1943 would be pretty interesting. Again, you still have, plenty of options, plenty of types of units, vehicles, but again, that sort of be certain capped up. You could have the Italians, you could have the Americans, the British, the Germans. You could even sneak in some colonial troops there for the British, also Australians, New Zealanders, Indians, Gurkhas. That'd be a lot, there to go on. And the Americans could have the paratroopers, the Rangers, and so on there. So again, a lot of stuff there, a lot of options, a lot of potential. Plus, if Relic then sort of felt like, doing some kind of elite unit, they wouldn't have to worry about doing the SS. They could just do the Hermann Göring Fallschirm Panzer Grenadier Division. Probably have to shut down the name, but, again, there'd be options there. So, and plus, Italy is just, not really very covered for a front in any World War II game. We got Sniper Elite 4 sort of covering Italy. And that's probably it here in many, many recent years. Otherwise, Italy's just basically the forgotten front. Which, again, it would also mean, it'd be very sort of a fresh thing for Relic to explore. plus a lot less contention in some ways, as long as they stay away from the French colonial troops, which kinda rape their way through southern Italy. Yeah, that one doesn't get talked about a lot for, well, obvious reasons. But again, it would allow them to sort of focus on one part again there. And again, I think it's sort of where Cummings to sort of suffered a bit. He tried to sort of cover the entire Eastern Front, and that's, not really, I think, what sort of campaign here sort of works for. Sort of more specific period, a bit like how Cummings won was Normandy, Arnhem, and a bit beyond that. And again, that worked pretty well there. Again, it was 1 year, a sort of short, brief series of fronts, and that was it. So again, Italy 1943, I think, again, is something where Communist Free could really excel and then could stay a lot more focused. And again, there'd be plenty of potential for factions and equipment and who knows what as well. Plus, of course, Italy, does represent, a lot of variety there in terms of, terrain as well. You could sort of have the more tropical southern Italy, more mountainous Italy, rural Italy, even a bit of urban Italy. I mean, that'd be a lot of sort of, room there to explore some gorgeous, not very often seen terrain as well. And again, it could be colourful, it could be interesting, it could be, fun to look at. So in that regard, it would also, I think, visually be, quite fun to look at and again open up for a lot of room there. So again, I really, personally, again, if they were to begin, coming to Italy, I'd really love it if they went for Italy and again specifically for the 1943 period. I really think, again, it's an overlooked part of the war, which, I think Relic could throw themselves over and sort of really do a lot with. And again, campaign-wise, we've got the invasion of Italy, Sicily, for example. There's the Anzio landings, Monte Cassino, though that's probably more 1944, so perhaps not. But even then, plus all the different lines they sort of had to break through. So in that sense, there'd be a lot to work with. Plus for the Germans, Fallschirmjägers, Gebirgsjägers. In fact, they had mountain troops fighting there, so that would also be a pretty bit of fun there. Plus aforementioned elite division. There was also an elite grenadier division, which probably doesn't hear much about, but the 44th Reich und Hochmeister Division, actually, which had been put together after being crushed in Stalingrad. Fun fact. So again, I think, Italy 1943 is ripe, for exploration by Relic, as a World War II RTS. And again, I think there could be, and again, do a lot of fun then. So that's, well, rather what I think there could work out pretty well, sort of as a general rule of thumb in terms, what to do. Plus, of course, they could give the Germans also then Pantherturms if they really want to sort of play defensively, I guess. Or just a series of any other kinds of turms, because they usually use a lot of tank sort of turret defenses. Hell, they even dug in some Panthers and used them as static defenses. So, again, a lot of room there, I think. But also, again, very unexplored. So, again, that would give that very nice, fresh feeling, but also allow you to do something besides, Germans on the Axis side. And again, I know in Italy, 1943, having the Italian army there would be stretching it a bit, but it'd be sort of more of a believable stretch rather than where someone I would argue like Italy here, which is like, 1 year after they surrendered, and essentially they had a few units not really achieving much, and a Waffen-SS division, which we're never going to see, plus the black shirts, I suppose. And of course, the big question there, the reality is they're probably not going to cover the black shirts, though even then they probably don't quite as much as stigma there as the Waffen-SS. But again, they're probably not going to happen. So yeah, I don't really think there's much to say there. Again, just sort of covered why I think it's good. Again, freshness, different, terrain, less explored. And again, time period wise, I just think, it sort of gets a good mix of equipment and again, sort of avoids the Wunderwaffen stage, which I really think, again, also in part, the Oberkommando is really just weighed down by very heavily in a not very helpful manner. So there you go. If you like this, of course, subscribe, like, share it, comment on, of course, tell Relic this is a brilliant video. We want Italy 1943 and company history and so on there. And of course, you do like what I do with videos, commentary and so on there. Do consider donating. Every little bit helps, keep me casting day after day and making all of these lovely videos. Links are in the video description. PayPal and Patreon are both options, and every little bit is appreciated, even a single dollar. So this is Imperial Dancing. Cheers, thank you for watching. Hope to see you tomorrow for tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and as much later than that. So thanks and see you all. Cheers.